Welcome. Uncle Bob, can I do the opening, please? Welcome to BTFD TV. My name is Jack Barnes, and this is the Macro Tourist Hour. With us is the one, the only Uncle Bob, and obviously the Hammer himself, who is most likely pantless and hiding under the desk that way. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. This will be a shorter episode. And Uncle Bob, since you love politics, why don't we go to you?
Yeah, it was a fairly active week in politics. Of course, there was a Republican debate that occurred, and the fallout from that is fairly significant. Carly Fiorina was viewed as the winner of that debate. Although what is interesting is there was not an insignificant amount of backlash relative to that, specifically on her comment regarding the Planned Parenthood videos. A video that she referred to has some stock footage that was cut into it. She continues to say that she saw it and it's all real and stuff, but anyway, that is what it is. As can be expected, she has started to already take some significant hits on her corporate record. That is her record at Lucent Technologies and her CEO record at Hewlett-Packard. And she does have some significant problems there. She was summarily dismissed by the board of directors of Hewlett-Packard amongst some significant controversy. But anyway, we'll follow up on that. I think that there are going to be significant... one other thing about Fiorina, she does lack money, both Super PAC money and campaign money. So it's going to be important for her to see if she can really raise some money. Word has it that I'm hearing is that she's having some difficulty with that. That being said, a number of candidates on the extended stage that is the Republican candidacy for president are having trouble. Few of them are as lean as, say, Rick Santorum, who knows kind of how to run on a shoestring budget. Mike Huckabee is in trouble. Bobby Jindal's in trouble. Scott Walker is in significant trouble. Scott Walker was once at 18%.
I owe you a beer on that one. Are you going to rub that in?
No, I'm just going to say he was once at 18% in the state of Iowa. He is now below 1%. Anyway, let's not belabor that unless we want to come back to it. There are two other items on the political scene that I want to mention. One is there is a pending government shutdown over Planned Parenthood. Now, Planned Parenthood is part of the larger Health and Human Services budget that really is within the control. That budget ends up being within the control of the executive branch. The Republicans are dead set against limiting funds for Planned Parenthood, particularly in the House. Also, speaking up on that particular topic is Ted Cruz, who's trying to make some kind of hay for his political campaign. So we're going to see if that happens. It is problematic. Both John Boehner and Mitch McConnell have significantly warned their people that it is not a good idea, particularly with an election year coming up. But we'll see what happens there. The final thing I wanted to mention was what did come out, which has pseudo-political impact, but there is political impact down the road, is the Fed decision came out where the Fed essentially punted. It's unclear whether they're going to have really another bite at the apple. They contend that they will, but it's quite unclear. And they did mention a number of things in... All right. One more thing. Let me just finish. I'm almost done. They mentioned a few things in their talking points. Jeb Hensarling is on it. It is going to be a problem.
I was just going to say that Hammer is here. Let's ask him.
So, I'm hearing a little reverb, I guess, from Jack's setup at the moment.
Yeah, me. I'm tuning it down.
Okay. So, I was the one rare bird this time, and I'm going to take my bows when I can, that said that they were not gonna raise rates this time. I think they are still worried about the tepidness of the economy, and you have someone in Yellen who has a great deal of pull with the other 6 voting presidents. who is not comfortable really tightening until she feels that there is more stability, more foundation in the economy. So the next time they could do it would be October. They do have a bite of the apple in October. They have one more in December, and then that's going to be it until after the election. The Fed very, very rarely does anything with interest rates if they can during an election year, because they don't want to sway things. They want to be seen as above the fray, away from the fray, and to let the politics play out as it will, without any of their interference or belief that the Fed is interfering. So you're going to see that for a little bit, but I really think that if it's my opinion that they may raise it by 25 basis points if we see decent jobs number in a few weeks. They may raise it by 25, maybe 50 basis points on the short end. But then after that, I would be very, very surprised unless there was some major exogenous event that they didn't predict to raise it during the election year.
Yeah, I mean, I would completely concur with that. Now, the one thing, Philip, I think is worthy of mentioning, I tweeted it out early this morning, but James Bullard had a speech actually in Nashville here yesterday, and he kind of really distanced himself from the decision, which was, I thought, quite interesting. It's a fairly extensive slideshow that accompanied it. It's available on the St. Louis Fed website. I will retweet it out when we're done with this session, but it's certainly worth reading and taking a look at. Basically, I think his point was he felt normalization had already occurred, or to the extent that it's possible, and that the Fed's goals had been met as much as humanly possible, and as much as we've seen in I think basically he said forever. So it was very interesting. I did hear some criticism later about that, but it's worth noting, and I think anybody that's on this conference should take a perusal through that.
All right, Uncle Bob. Oh,
yes,
no,
sir.
I'm on mute. Am I on mute? No, I'm not. All right. Let's do a quick shift. We haven't talked about Europe in a while. There's a relocation process going on in Europe right now. Thoughts, guys? We're talking millions of people.
Or assets. I mean, it's going to be a drain on Europe. It's going to cause, I think it's going to decrease their GDP for probably for about a year to year and a half until they can absorb the people that are going to stay, and at some point they're going to have to start weeding, not weeding, I would say that's probably the wrong word, but certainly going through the people that are there, start understanding who they are, what their background is, make sure that there is that these people don't represent security risks. Germany is starting to get wind of that. Some of the people coming over in the Syria refugee grouping have some ISIS background or ISIL or whatever you like to call them. So it's I think it's going to have a negative effect on their GDP. I think it's going to have a negative effect on their overall economies, especially for people like Germany. I think Angela Merkel overdid it by saying that we'll take as many as they are. I do think that one of the repercussions of this is the Arab nations that have to date taken none of them and have shown no interest in taking any of them, even though the Arabs in Syria may not be of the same tribes as those in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the UAE. Or in Egypt, which is even closer, it's going to start causing real problems. I think the different people between the Shiites and the Sunni and the other various Islamic factions are going to start causing problems internally for these for these Muslim countries. One thing that I would note, just to make life even more interesting, is that the Hamas Palestinian Authority. Tentative peace is starting to break down a little bit, especially in Gaza, as the energy to Gaza has started to deteriorate. And what I mean by energy is the availability of energy on a consistent basis. From what I read, about 50 to 60% of the energy that is delivered to Gaza comes from Israel directly. 40% of it comes from Egypt, and the rest of it coming from Gaza and West Bank generators. What you're finding is that outside of Israel, the other two are not providing consistent energy to the Gaza Strip. So you're starting to see a lot of unrest about having 8, 9, 20-hour brownouts or forced power outages because they don't have enough power for all the people there, and the other nations are not stepping up to the plate. So
I just wanted a quick circle back on the whole Europe relocation issue. I have read a number of reports. I mean, I've read a ton of reports, but I am hearing that the Syrian portion of this migration is really only roughly 20 to 25%. There are tons of Afghanis and people from everywhere that are jumping on board this migration to the EU. So I think that that's very interesting. What is being sold, at least in this country, in the mainstream press, or at least in the TV press, is that it's a Syrian migration, and I think that that is less the case than is being than it is reality. The other thing that I wanted to mention also is Germany not only committed to 800,000 and then 500,000 for the next 10 years, but they have also apparently laid a very heavy hand on other members of the EU to jump on board. And of course, you have a huge bifurcation between the haves and the have-nots within the EU, which creates problems. Now, also, it's notable to say that Germany has some real structural reasons for perhaps wanting a younger population, as their population continues to age, and they don't have a high unemployment rate at this point. So I think those are notable factors that people should consider when looking at that situation.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I also think that the numbers are probably a little bit low. I don't think that there's going to be as many people as they are afraid are going to come over, but I think the surge is going to be larger during the max portion of it. You know, some of the numbers I'm hearing are as many as 5 million people or more are expected to arrive in Europe. I agree with you on the Germany aspect, definitely. They're one of the oldest nations on the planet, and they've got real issues there. Where who's going to inherit Germany in 50 years? And Japan. Those two both have population cycle issues. You know, who knew that losing a war would end up crushing your population growth curves over time? Makes sense now in hindsight, but I don't think we really talked about it much per se in the past.
Yeah, I mean it's quite dramatic. I mean when you think Germany is trying to put a heavy hand on other members of the EU, and let's just say Portugal, Spain, and Greece, for instance, you know, where the unemployment rate is basically untenable at this point. Now, it is not that the migrants necessarily would desire to go to those particular places because of the underlying issues, but it is creating a huge, or I should say not a huge, but more of a political storm within the EU that looks ever more fractured to me.
Have you seen the chart where it says nations, and it's like no war, no war, no war, nowhere, and then there's like England in the upper left corner, and everyone's going straight to England. It isn't like they're even. I mean, they all have a mission to get as far away from there as possible. I'll just put it that way.
I think that's
guys. What do you think about Russia and Putin in Syria, where he's now dropped his air force in?
This is one where I wish we had Brian on. I have no idea why Putin at this point is supporting the Assad regime. So, but Bob seems to know because I'm confused by
Go
this.
ahead, Uncle Bob.
Well, I mean, I think he needs desperate access to a warm weather port. That's as I understand it, that's his primary justification or reason for being there. And he feels like he's got kind of somebody he can basically manipulate and do whatever he wants to do. I mean, he moved in there in full force. They moved what SR-30s in there. I saw a satellite image of the planes that are there. Those are the real deal. They are not just like crap aircraft.
Things could get interesting in Syrian airspace between Israel and Russia. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
Because you've got the U.S. that says we're going to fly over Syria, and no one's going to tell us we're not going to. We all know that. Okay. There's not an air force on the planet that can put a cap on top of a nation if we want to be there. So we're there. The Russians are there. And the Israelis are there. So, you got three different groups that may or may not even pick up the damn telephone when they call each other.
No, it's definitely something that where you're going to find it's a type of environment, and it's such a small airspace that accidents will happen.
Yeah, I agree.
And don't be surprised if the Syrians or the Russians accidentally start hitting, Jordan by accident, Lebanon by accident.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there, and although I'm a little surprised by Putin wanting to get in bed with Syria because there's no direct link between Russia and Syria.
Well, I mean, Philip, let me just say that the other interesting thing that came out yesterday, you were, in quiet time, was that the Russian government actually approached the U.S. and asked for talks about Syria and about actually they intimated getting rid of Assad. So who knows? But what they did was they actually have already built temporary structures that house, I think, 2,000 troops, and that they flew in and they have up already. So they actually have troops on the ground and they're ready to rock. But they did make some indications, and Kerry had some comments on it that were basically, we don't know, we'll listen to them kind of deal. But I think to your point, I think that we face real problems there in the near term, just in terms of all these different forces flying around there.
Hey, Philip, let's go over to fixed income. Can you give us a touch on what the kids are doing over in that area?
To be honest with you, I've been kind of out of it because of the holidays and on business travel. So next week next week will be problematic, but I really haven't been following it. I mean, I know there's still the play for yield. On the structured side, you still have non-agency RMBS being weak. Last week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, the asset-backed East, which is the big securities conference, happened in Florida. I was not able to attend due to my day job, and but what's really coming out of it is people are still looking for places to put their money. People are still looking for product, but the way the securitization execution is right now for private label RMBS, it's not there. You got the same kind of old tired answers about, oh well, if you drop the conforming rate, the conforming amount for Fannie and Freddie loans, you'd get more private label securitizations. Oh, if we raise the G fee, you will. The usual palbum. The facts are that it's better for the banks to buy non-agency securities and hold them in portfolio in a whole loan form, both from a capital perspective, from a yield perspective, than it is in a securitized form. And until the credit curve cheapens significantly, I don't see any change in that. In the CMBS market, the credit card market, and some of the esoterics, those things are going well. The one market which I really need to start doing some research, and I apologize, I just haven't looked at it in a while, is the student loan side. That had been showing stresses at the beginning of the summer, but due to certain, I haven't been able to
No
really
worries.
focus on it.
You've been on. I know what time of year it is.
Yeah, thank you. And flying back and forth from the West Coast to the East Coast, and then taking a week break in Ireland to.
Yeah, that was just brutal for you. I'm just. You can feel the blood flowing on the desk here, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the blood, but I can hear the tears. I can hear the absolute.
Oh,
tears.
you know it. The diamonds falling out of my eyes, right?
Exactly.
Hey, Uncle Bob.
Yes, sir.
What are your thoughts now, politically speaking, about the Donald? Have we finally hit peak Donald?
Well, you may have hit peak Donald, but there's another article that I sent out this morning on the tweet stream that is definitely worth people taking a look at. And it was the alternate lead of the New York Times this morning about the Republican Party and how they tried to, and this is Reince Priebus primarily, tried to recraft the nomination process in a much quicker, quote-unquote, cleaner way. And this has led to real problems. That is, they compress the cycle significantly, and this kind of bodes well for Mr. Trump, who, despite a bunch of missteps, doesn't seem to lose much of his electorate. Now,
no, he doesn't.
He does seem to have a significant top side, but with all these candidates in the race and with all this outside money in the race, some of these clowns are going to continue for quite some time. I mean, Governor Christie, who did fairly well in the last debate, really does not have significant support, but he does have huge money behind him. He's got Langone money behind him and Langone's friends, and that super PAC is going to keep him going for quite some time. So this leads to a problem, and this leads to Donald Trump perhaps having as much as 25% of the delegates. They talk about in the article 15%. But that would give him significant leverage within that nomination process. This is a real problem, and anybody that's interested in politics really should read that article. They can say what they want about the Times, but it's a fairly straight down the line report and very edifying, I thought.
What do you think about Donald being a VP in the Republican Party races?
I think there's two chances. There's zero and there's none.
All right. All right. I'll take that as a vote from you.
I think for the vice presidential challenge, my odds-on favorite, irrespective of the nominee, is Nikki Haley, the governor.
Okay, so let me ask a question, Bob. The wags on the street Friday, Friday, but before it became lights out for me, said that according to the Biden camp, it's not a matter of if, but when Uncle Joe or Scranton Joe comes into the race, and given his performance on Colbert, which I'm sure was somewhat scripted. What do you think that does to Hillary and to Bernie?
Well, Bernie, I think, sits in his own category. He is just a pot stirrer. I don't think he's a real potential nominee at this point. Dopey Joe, which is my moniker for Mr. Biden, or for Vice President Biden, has a real chance, although a lot of the money has been taken. If anybody that reads behind the scenes knows that Hillary has paid a great deal of attention to a special group of delegates, and that is not the delegates that are awarded via the primaries, but so-called super delegates, and has secured a number of those. The other problem for Dopey Joe is getting money. Although he did have a meeting that he leaked out to the press with Bob Wolf, who is a significant aggregator for President Obama. He's the former U.S. head of UBS, I believe. So, you know, how much money he'll be able to generate. Now, here's the issue for Hillary. I did hear that they released 100,000, I don't know if it was pages or emails today. I really don't know what that is, but here's the problem for her. You have a drip, drip, drip that's going to continue to January at this point of emails that are going to be declassified monthly. Now, she goes in front of the Congressional Committee, I believe, almost just about a month from now. I think it's October 23rd. She goes in front of the committee, and she best be nice. And she's going to face a very, very tough crowd. She is a lousy with a capital L, lousy retail politician. Say whatever you will about her. She's bright. I know people that have met her in private and have kind of warmed to her. But she on the stump, she is just atrocious, absolutely atrocious. So it's interesting. I think there is a little way for Joe. You know, one day I heard the same things on Thursday and Friday, and all of prior week, and then this weekend they tamped it down again with Joe. He does have ability to pay for all these particular primaries, but I think it would have to be Hillary falling, you know, just killing herself.
All right, gentlemen, we've been at it for a half an hour. Do you have anything you want to cover? Anything? Any topics we should circle back to, or do we call this a macro half hour?
Goodbye.
You know, you got me, and sorry guys, it's going to be tough for the next couple of weeks, but by the middle of October, I'll be caught up.
Are you going to tell me the hammer will be loaded by the middle of October?
Yeah, I'll be banging on some nails.
All right. Uncle Bob, do you have any last comments?
No. I mean, I think that the key thing that we look forward to is what's going to happen with the government shutdown. I note that the financial tier is really not talking about it much, and I think it's likely.
I would be. I know they're into their brinkmanship. I would not be surprised if you don't see a 2 to 3 month pushback. Even though you might have people like Cruz and so forth, the mainstream Republicans do not want to see a shutdown, especially so close, because everybody's going to blame the Republicans. It's not going to be the Democrats. Plus, the Planned Parenthood has done a very good job of getting the message out there. Hey, abortions aren't funded. We're funding, breast cancer. We're funded by, the government does not pay for any of our abortions, but it does pay for the work we do with cervical cancer, breast cancer, all these other women, all the other issues that go on. And I don't think the moderate Republicans, the 3 of them that are left, are gonna want to have any part of that. So I think it's a very dangerous game. Cruz needs something like this, because if it doesn't go well for him, it's gone. Now, for me personally, my agency is not appropriated through the appropriation process. We're like the other financial regulators, the regulatees pay fees to us, so we're not appropriated. Which
so you're a tax.
Yeah, pretty much. but for me, and this is just because I'm a horrible person, is when the government shut down, my traffic is so much better getting to work.
All right, on that note, folks, I want to thank each and every one of you for watching us. This has been the Macro Half Hour. Hopefully, I will figure out my technical issues at this end, and we'll return next week. And we'll pick up where we left off. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week. Stay safe out there.
All right, bye.